Hey guys, what's up? Primal here, and welcome to my 2018 end of the year recap. Happy New Year, everyone. Few things first. First of all, this is going to be a pretty long video, like a little over 3 hours from what I've gotten while working on this. I mean, I don't intend for it to be that long, but I've got to include like just about bits and pieces from everything I've done this year. So, well, most everything. I mean, things that I can, show that are moving on a screen, of course. Second of all, I am recording this days in advance from when I'm gonna upload, because the latest I'm going to do this, the latest that this is gonna be up on YouTube is December 31st, New Year's Eve. I mean, it wouldn't be much of an end of the year recap if I didn't, and it kind of has a bit more specialty that way. And third of all, the way I'm recording this is on the new smartphone tripod I got for Christmas. I mean, that's the least important, but I got a better vantage point, and so videos with my face from now on will have a much better angle. So I hope you guys all enjoy, and I hope you have the time and patience to watch all I've done this year. Still trying to figure out... Never mind. So, I hope you guys have all had a good year, 2018. It's been pretty decent for me. Had some good, had some bad, but I'm sure I'm gonna miss it, but the new year is definitely gonna bring some really cool stuff for us. I will leave some specialty things for next year, like at the end of this video, but for now, let's dive right in. Okay guys, so a few other things while we dive right in. First off is that each of these video clips that will be shown in this video are in chronological order from when I started them. But there are some other things that I did this year that I probably can't show, so let's talk about them a little bit. My first couple of videos were actually a top 10 list, or two parts of a top 20 list. Yeah. They were my top 20 organ songs in video games, which I probably need to redo, seeing as how I kind of chose poorly in regards to what I chose. But anywho, afterwards, the first game I started playing was what's being shown here, Journey. I wasn't all that interested in playing it at first, but in one of my video game classes for college, it came up, and also Austin Wintory himself actually came for a visit and lecture, believe it or not. So later that night, he was performing live with his entire crew that did the music for Journey, and I got to see the whole game. Yeah, I got to see the whole game go through. People were playing the game live while he and his crew were performing the music. I must say, Journey's a lot more interesting than I had anticipated. Much quicker as well. And even though it was short and sweet at the beginning of this year, I really did enjoy playing it. I mean, indie games are not something I play too often, but this was definitely one for the history books. Well, my history books at least. Oh yeah, also if you hear background noise, it's kind of storming outside right now. I sincerely apologize for that. Also, Darn it, what else was I gonna say? Okay, well, the audio clips for my commentary for this, they probably won't be all in the same day, and they'll all probably be in advance before New Year's as well. Yeah. There were bits and pieces of Journey I had not expected, such as like these giant dragonfly monsters, which are encountered after what's being shown here. And the fact, the fact that you actually get to go all the way up to the light where the mountain... darn it, what am I trying to say? The fact that you get the journey all the way up to the top of the mountain towards the light is pretty interesting. I'm just amazed how quickly you get there. This entire game can be played in one day. Though people prefer to take their time and do other stuff, according to other sources, from what I've heard. And even though I kind of like to do that as well, I just prefer to see how the story ends. So, I'm not really sure how many of you guys watched my playthrough of Journey, but y'all should try and go check it out if and when y'all can. Okay, so that'll conclude my review for Journey this year. Moving on. So after I played Journey, I went back and finished one of my other series that I failed to finish in 2017, which is Nier Automata, or Automata. I guess it's Automata, I don't really know for sure. But, yeah, I was a bit skeptical at first, seeing as how hard things were getting in Route C. And to be honest, I had already seen the video game's ending before, reaching this part. I know it's not right to spoil things like this, but, it came out... Everything from Nier Automata came out way early in advance than I had expected it to. And, like I said, I'm just curious to see how the story ends, and this game was pretty much piquing my interests a lot when I first saw it in early 2017. I had not really heard anything about it until like January when I lost my grandmother. Sorry, I'm just trying to log back into my phone. It's quite interesting, the story, in all perspectives. It's really well written, and this game last year got awarded for Best Soundtrack, and I'm not gonna argue with that. But yeah, seeing how this whole story ended was just really it just really blew my mind. And I don't know much about the director, Yoko Taro, as much as you guys do, but I can see where y'all are coming from when he has a really, really weird imagination. And this game was really fun to play. And hopefully one day I'll be able to come back to it and maybe do some more stuff to it. Maybe like do a boss ranking video. I hear that Democracy's gonna try and do his own for it, but I haven't really seen much activity from him. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully I can... Who knows, maybe I could... I don't know. Raining pretty heavily out there right now. But yeah, I really like the story. I really like the characters. Kind of trying to decide who's my favorite out of the three main ones between 9S, 2B, and A2. I mean, 2B and A2 like work in this in a very similar fashion. Except A2 has her own special function that I vowed never to use again while activating it during a boss battle. It's her like berserker mode, which completely eats up my health like no tomorrow. And then there's 9S who's all about hacking, not too much heavy combat. I mean, he doesn't even like hold the sword as he uses it. He just I don't know whether it's some sort of telekinesis or something, but every time he uses it, it just floats around in the air like magic. Well, I just prefer to have the characters holding the sword. I mean, it's a cool thing, but I just have my own personal what's the word? Never mind. Sorry, guys. There were some parts I just wish I was a better player. I kind of like that for a lot of games. It's not just this one, like Dark Souls or Devil May Cry, which you will see a lot later in this video. It doesn't make sense. I thought we were supposed to be out of the tornado watch and weather by this time, but apparently I was wrong. Again, I apologize in advance for the background noise from the weather. Yeah, this was unexpected. This is like the warmest winter we've had thus far during this time of year. And it'll be really surprising if we actually do get a tornado in December. So, in regards to Nier Automata, I really enjoyed playing this game. Sorry it took so long to finish. It's not the only one I still need to finish. I still have, like, other games I need to play, but yeah, I keep getting distracted and preoccupied with other things, so yeah. Well, I guess right now I'll just let the rest of this clip play on, and I'll be back with you guys when the next one comes around. Won't be too long now. Okay, so here we have Cuphead. I got an Xbox One from my friend Alec, like, about a year ago, and it was the first game I ever played on it. People weren't kidding when they said it was hard, but I found it quite entertaining nonetheless. I'm still on World 2, I haven't made much progress with it, and this series might take a while if I am to finish it, because of how Xbox records video, and, well, just given the difficulty of this game. To be honest, I'm like still on World 2 right now, and I've only beaten one boss there. But, yeah, I really liked, I didn't even know anything about this game till it came out, to be honest. So, it took me a while to actually get into it. I watched videos on it from time to time when I was in school, and over time it grew on me, so when I saw online that from my friend that they were selling their Xbox, I just decided to buy it off them. It was a really cheap deal, and it's really worth it, for the most part. So, with that said, I'll just let the rest of this play on for you guys. Okay, so around the time I was, like, finishing up all my other series and starting others like Cuphead, I also decided to try and do the last Witcher DLC, which I never got to play last year because I didn't have the money for it at the time. So, about earlier this year, like really early in January, before I started my second semester of college, I decided to try and play the last DLC for The Witcher and hopefully finish it. To be honest, I kind of feel this game, I pour a lot of my time into this game. Like, it's kind of hard to remember exactly what else I was doing other than playing The Witcher when I was playing and uploading stuff from it. because it like took me all up till my 19th birthday to actually finish playing and uploading a series on it. And then afterwards I may have done Hearts of Stone after I started doing Minecraft Story Mode Season 2. At least when the second episode released. But yeah, it had been a while since I played this game, and when I started this DLC I was like completely worn down, and the difficulty spike did not make things much easier for me. I mean, I was like missing things like potions and stuff that could really help me, especially against my first encounter with Detlef, because he was a tough son of a bitch, I will say that. I mean, I haven't finished the DLC, and I highly doubt I will, because I was just, the difficulty of it and all was just becoming a bit much for me, and I also gave my entire game away as a wedding present to my friend Jordan. Hope he has better luck with it than I do if he ever reaches this point. But yeah, I really enjoy The Witcher nonetheless. It's just, there's just some things about it, like, after I was done with the main game, I started getting more and more worn down, and I didn't know how to get back in the saddle, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I really wish I could have, you know, this was something I could finish. I really liked this DLC, and I watched videos on it like when I was first getting into this game. I didn't even think it was actual DLC. In fact, I thought that I had the DLC because my parents' friend gave me this game, so I didn't pay a dime for it. And it took me a bit to actually get around to playing it, and a while to actually get into it and understand the whole story behind it. So, with that said, I'll let you enjoy the rest, and I'll move on to the next highlight from one of the things I did this year, when it's time.
Yes, Geralt, it's me.
Regis? You alright?
All is well. All's in order. Wounds such as these heal on vampires in moments. But we've not seen one another in ages, my friend. At least in human terms, that is.
How's this even possible? Last I saw you...
I was a bubbling, shapeless smear, having been rather spectacularly melted into a column of a certain castle. In somewhat better shape now, as you can see. Hardly peak form, mind you, but were I human, folk would think me a demigod, I dare say.
I'm sorry. What happened? It was my fault. Never got a chance to apologize.
No need, Geralt. Bygones. I did not have to join you on that expedition. No one twisted my arm.
Okay, now for the first major title that released this year, Monster Hunter World. It's the very first Monster Hunter game I played, and yeah, it's also the very first major title that was upcoming that I played this year. I wasn't too sure about playing it at first until I played the beta. And after I played the beta last year about this time, I also... yeah, that's when I started getting into it. And then what really piqued my interest were some of the special monsters known as Elder Dragons. That's what really pumped up my hype a little bit. I had no idea, like, where we were from the past few games. I never played any of the originals, like 1, 2, 3, or 4 Generations. I'm actually thinking about trying to play Generations pretty soon if I'm able to obtain the money for a Nintendo Switch and it. And Smash Ultimate. That's something I also want to try and play. And maybe a few other titles. We'll see when we get there. Hopefully I can start doing stuff with the Nintendo Switch and uploading. So, yeah, it took me a while to figure out who these monsters were and where they came from, especially the guy being shown here, Kushala Daora. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Yeah, this guy here is an Elder Dragon. His element is wind, and he's basically a walking natural disaster, like the rest of the Elder Dragons, but his kind is able to affect the weather. But I'm not basically here to give you a basic rundown of specific monsters. I'm here to tell you about my experience with the games I played this year and all the other stuff that I tried to do. So, yeah. It took me a little bit to actually adjust to this game. I mean, there were so many weapon types. I started out with an insect glaive, and I changed up my style to, like, where I finished with a heavy bow gun. But then, later on down the road, when more and more stuff was coming out for it, I started experimenting with new styles and weapons, and mainly I now find the daggers to be a favorite of mine. And I'm still filthy casual at this game, to be honest. I mean, I'm not as, like, one of the advanced players I've seen online, like Team Darkside or any of those guys. I'm not as good as them. I wish I was. That would make my life a hell of a lot better. But yeah, I really enjoy this game, and though over time when you just do stuff with it and there's nothing new yet, it feels a little lackluster. But luckily we have some more new stuff coming out next year. It's just gonna take a really, really long time. I mean, they have a new special expansion called Iceborne coming out, and it's gonna feature a new ice location, and it's hopefully a bunch of new monsters. I also saw that people are speculating that Nargacuga is one of them. So, yeah, that one would probably be fun to fight, but hopefully they can also add some other new Elder Dragons, because those guys, despite being tough, they're my favorites. Especially, what's the name of one that I mean, there's just so many that I just can't think of a specific one right now. Sorry, guys. Hopefully, like, one from the older games, such as Alatrion, or maybe Nakarkos, or even what's that one called? Not Orochi Kirin, not that one. Yeah, Kirin's probably one of my least favorites. Sorry to say that. Yeah, I can't think of any other names right now. But hopefully, yeah, they add some really cool new stuff that I've seen from the other games online. So with that, I'm gonna leave it there and wait for the next subject to come up. Now it's time for an old classic to return. Shadow of the Colossus was brought back to the modern consoles in February. Second major title that released this year, and boy have I missed playing this game. I first played it in 2015 on its 10th anniversary, according to when it first released back in 2005. I used PS Now to play it, but I had difficulty beating it, not because the monsters or anything were too hard for me. It was because of my meddlesome internet connection, which caused it to blank out every time it would have some faults in it. And my free trial for PS Now expired before I could finish it. I was like on the very last Colossus when that happened. And it may have taken a while, but I finished it officially in November. And at that time, I would say that the last Colossus was pretty hard at first for me, because he kept moving his hands and I couldn't get a clear shot at his shoulders so I could move to the top of him. But this isn't the last Colossus shown here. This is Avion, the 5th Colossus, the Delta Phoenix, or so she's called. Some people think this one's a girl, which I'm still trying to figure out how they would suggest that, but it's cool either way. Sorry, not trying to bring anything up that would, like, upset people. I'm just going off of what I've seen in YouTube comments in the past. But I think this one would... Yeah, I can see why people would consider this one a girl, but let's not talk about that anymore. It's just, this fight is probably everyone's favorite in the whole game. I mean, you're riding a humongous stone/fuzzy hawk over a misty lake. You can barely see anything except its body. And the scale of grandeur of it is just amazing. And given the experience I have from playing this game before on PS Now, I was, for the most part, able to have little to no trouble with each one. The only one I did have trouble with was Basarin, the 9th Colossus, who, yeah, I can now see why everyone hates him. And the only reason I lost to Argus is because of some glitch. When he smashed his sword into the building, it sent me flying back into a wall, which I glitched through and then fell to my death. It's a hilarious story. You can go see that video on my channel, how it happened. Yeah, it's into my Shadow of the Colossus playlist. And even though Avion isn't necessarily my personal favorite, I just cannot get over my very first time fighting her. It was just quite an experience. So cinematic. But my personal favorite in this game would be Phaedra, the 4th Colossus, Ecus Prime, the big crab horse. I mean, even though he's creepy and a sense of dread comes from him, I just really like the way he's designed. He's probably the only Colossi who's instilled a sense of dread and terror in my heart when I first fought him. I mean... And I really like how they updated the Colossi to have different sound effects, and Phaedra's is a personal favorite of mine. I mean, he just sounds a lot scarier than he first did. And aside from that, when I fought some of the other Colossi that I had a tough time with, like Dirge, I really had a much better time. I mean, it was a little bit easier for me and a lot more fun as well. Same would go for ones such as Phalanx and Celosia, surprisingly enough. I actually beat that annoying little prick on the first try this time around. So, yeah, that's all I have to say for Shadow of the Colossus. I'm just really glad it's back, and it's a really fun game, and I'm hoping I can try and do more stuff with it later in the future, should I find a time, chance, and reason to come back to it. So, with that said, I'll shut up till the next video clip. So earlier in March this year, Final Fantasy XV released yet another DLC title update. And even though this one would have signified the end of the content, apparently there's still a little bit left to do, and that's going to be an episode art, and I don't know when it's coming out, but yeah, apparently their whole Final Fantasy XV universe just went up in smoke, unlike Final Fantasy XIV, which I believe released the last of its content earlier this year as well, in Stormblood. Now, let's talk about this DLC in particular. It expanded the entire ending sequence of Final Fantasy XV. It provided a lot of cool new bosses, such as the Kings of Yore, and I'm not entirely sure if I like the way they did it, but it has its redeeming qualities, such as the boss fight shown here. I just wish I could have fought all 13, or at least the 12, because the 13th one would be Noctis's dad, Regis, who died in Kingsglaive. What else? During this whole particular bit here, I was definitely feeling a lot of Kingdom Hearts vibes, especially for the upcoming game. At least in terms of Yoko Shimomura's music. But I'm glad my videos for this turned out the way they did. I mean, at least in terms of this one, because when I do play stuff like this, I prefer to make it look worthwhile when watching. So, during each of the 3 old ruler bosses, you pretty much get a chance to have a small sequence with one of the 3 other characters, whether it be Gladio, Prompto, or Iggy. And apparently they gave the last one a phase 2 where you use all of them, which I really like. But each one in particular expanded their connection to Noct in a way. I just wish it had more quality content like this. I mean, at the time, I really enjoyed playing Final Fantasy XV. It just lost its luster over time real quick. Though the DLCs did its best to preserve it, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily the worst Final Fantasy game. I mean, It's only like the second one I've ever played. The first one I played was actually Lightning Returns, and I enjoyed that to its fullest. Though, I guess it got a bit repetitive over time. It'd be interesting if I could actually play the older games, such as 6 or 7, or 5, or even 10. I believe it's possible to play 10 on PS4 since they, ported it to it. Yeah, this whole bit here is where I started feeling the Kingdom Hearts feels. Yeah, that did not sound right at all. Not in a bad way, not in an appropriate way, it just didn't sound right. But during this boss fight, I learned that this guy here is the main villain's brother, which is pretty interesting lore-wise. Quite the reveal. And when I played Braille Edition, that's when I decided to finally show me being the final boss and ending of the game. I wasn't entirely sure on doing full series at the time when I was just starting out, and when I was just starting out, this was like the very last game I played before the end of the year. So I didn't start doing like full Let's Plays or anything like that until 2017, and yeah, my first successful one was actually Resident Evil 7. Yeah, I mean, it's just sad that some games like that I find awesome at first, I just lose whatever feeling I have for them later on, especially this one, because I thought it was a pretty cool game at first, and it was like, even though it wasn't much at first, I was actually looking forward to seeing this one come out and hopefully trying it out, because my very first video was me playing the Platinum demo of this game. So I guess I'll hold on to my words until the next video clip.
Go Noct! It's over. Broke it to you.
You have done well. Hear me, chosen king. The time has come to fulfill your calling and dispel the darkness from our world. Go forth, restore the light, and free my brother from his curse.
Thanks. With you guys at my side, I know I will be ready for anything.
So by the time my spring break came around, the original 3 Devil May Cry games came out for Xbox One and PS4. I almost said Xbox 4 and PS1, sorry. So I got the trilogy as soon as I could, and I decided to try and play them all in chronological order, but I wasn't sure about including number 2 because I've heard it's pretty sucky compared to the others. And later on down the road, things kind of went out of order. I can't remember whether I finished playing 4 or this one first, but yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, I kind of finished them out of order anyway, like from 3-4-1 or 4-3-1. But given my experience with the other games, it made playing 3 a little bit easier, especially since I got through the first boss, Cerberus, on my very first try. And he was actually pretty enjoyable. I mean, there were bits of him that would scare the hell out of me, like his charge attack. But I guess I just have a thing for the three-headed dog. I just have a special place for him in my heart. If you know what I mean. Just try not to make that sound dirty in your heads. So yeah, I played Devil May Cry 3 a little bit. I kind of got stumped on Mission 11 when you get to fight Beowulf, and I didn't really finish the game until, like, the summer. Same for, like, 4 and 1, which I didn't play until summer as well. So I guess, been a fan of Devil May Cry since really, really late 2016, and I never really got a chance to play the older games. I did try out DMC Devil May Cry, and I found it fun, but to be honest, I find these games to be a hell of a lot better. And I am really, really glad that an actual 5th installment is coming out next year. It's not too far off now. We only have like a little over 3 months now, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe more or less about 3 months left till Devil May Cry 5 comes out. And yeah, that's gonna be one of the major titles I'm hoping to bring to this channel. Same with like all the other stuff I saw at E3 this year, like Resident Evil 2 Remake and Kingdom Hearts 3, which I have been looking forward to ever since I first heard of it in 2013. I've been waiting years for that game to come out. I mean, it's pretty interesting. But I'll explain what I find interesting about it later on. And even though I find the Devil May Cry games pretty fun, I actually find them also a bit hard as well, which is kind of why I was on hiatus with them for a little bit. I kind of, in a way, consider them like the progenitor of Souls difficulty. Well, one of them at least. There's also Crash Bandicoot, which is why when I finished the first game I was just done after, yeah, when I was playing Insane Trilogy. And I almost gave up on a couple others, to be honest. But this one was one I definitely wanted to try and finish. I kind of made a vow to myself that if I have any games like this, and I've made significant progress on them, I intend to finish them to their fullest. Sadly, I couldn't do the same for Destiny when it came out, because it just got old real quick after the first 4 missions or so, when I was uploading with it. I'm just hoping to not repeat the same deal with Cuphead, Hollow Knight, and hopefully Witcher. I highly doubt I'll be able to finish Witcher, but well, I mean, I finished the main game, but the DLC that I talked about earlier. I'm hoping to come back to that one day. But it's probably going to be a very long time before I do. But I still got a bit of time before the new titles release next month, so I guess I'll try and use that time to make some more progress with my other series like Hollow Knight and hopefully Cuphead. So, This isn't the only Devil May Cry game I played this year, but I'm just doing my best to put everything that I did video game wise in chronological order. It might be a little inaccurate, but I didn't really do anything else with 4 and 1 till like the summer, so... But if you want to know what I did between that time, I'll show you in the next couple of video clips.
Regardless, you have proved your strength. I acknowledge your ability. Take my soul and go forth. You have my blessing.
So when I got done playing Devil May Cry, I decided to finish up my Kingdom Hearts series with each individual game I got from the 1.5 plus 2.5 and 2.8 remixes. And I decided to do them in chronological order, just like Devil May Cry. Kind of the same deal. I might also exclude Chain of Memories, because I went through Heaven and Hell with that, and I'm not really sure I want to do it again. But yeah, ever since last year, I've had like over 100 gigs worth of data regarding my Kingdom Hearts videos that I need to get uploaded, and since it was gonna be a while before the next major thing I wanted to play, which is God of War, I just decided to squeeze in a couple things like this, and I'm kind of glad I did. Oh. My parents are talking right now. So, starting off, I finished up doing my Birth by Sleep videos, and still to this day I find Terra Xehanort to be the hardest main game boss. But I still find him to be one of the best ones in it. I mean, Birth by Sleep may not be my utmost favorite game, but I really do enjoy a lot of the moments and ties to the story, and this one just really blew me away when I first saw it.
The heart is no different. Darkness sprouts within it. It grows.
And I'm just hoping that Terra is able to have an actual victory and getting his body back against Xehanort, and in Kingdom Hearts 3, which is not too far away now, only a little over a month left before it comes out now. And I know we get a rematch between these two, because I saw in one of the trailers for it that Lingering Will, who is really Terra's true self, fighting Terra Xehanort again. I don't know why people call him Terranort. It sounds completely, utterly stupid to me, to be honest. Though I guess it's one of the only things that rolls off the tongue and sounds fitting. So, I think that's all I have to say about this one. So for this end of the year review, games that are bundled together, instead of me just doing one single clip from each series, I'm just doing each individual game this time around. Hopefully be a bit more in depth. So, I think I said all I needed to for this one. I will talk to you when we move on to the next one.
What?
Aqua. Ven. One day, I will set this right.
One of the other things I did with the Kingdom Hearts series was re-upload some of the extras that I never got around to doing. I mean, I did the main story, but I never did like all the extra boss battles and all that like in the first couple of games. Kingdom Hearts 1, I could have probably done better with when uploading my main series for that. And I only did like 4 out of the 5 extra bosses. And I never really included it in like my actual end of the year recaps like last year, so I just decided, since I did some extra stuff with it, why not? And this isn't necessarily any of the extras that I did. This is like from the main game, and it's like probably my favorite bit of the whole game, which is my final fight against Riku. Fun fact, I found this guy to be like the hardest boss in the whole game. Like, I never really reached Ansem until 2011, and I was first fighting this guy like in 2007 or 8. I can't remember that well, but ever since then, he's actually been pretty easy for me. I've never really lost a fight to him since then. And yeah, things were pretty interesting with me at Kingdom Hearts back then. I did not have a full grasp on the story, and I mean, I was kind of mixed between playing this and 2, which I had at the time, if I'm not mistaken. And I didn't reach the ending of 2 till like late 2008. I guess I should really say 2008 or 2007. I'm just so used to saying things like 2016, 17, or 18. But yeah, so I didn't really do too much with when I was uploading and playing the first Kingdom Hearts game. I probably could have like made them look a little bit more fresh, like, give them better titles, and I guess maybe clean up my footage. But when I did get around to playing the extras, it was pretty interesting getting back into this game. I still gotta like fight Sephiroth, to be honest. So while I was uploading extra stuff from Kingdom Hearts 2, like optional boss fights and all that, I decided to finally finish my series on Kingdom Hearts 2, which is probably my favorite right now out of all the ones that are out, which is probably going to change pretty soon with Kingdom Hearts 3 coming out and all. But when I first played this game, I was in a state of confusion, and my mind was just completely lost on what was happening. But when I was first playing this, because I first played this at my cousin's house when I went to visit my family in Colorado for spring break.
That was just a sneak preview.
I kind of got a little ahead on his progress. I mean, I made my own save files, so that way he could, go back and do what he needed to before catching up to this. I stumbled upon the Lion King world. At the time, I was not a huge fan of the movie, but this whole world completely changed my perspective. So, yeah, and it remained my favorite in this game, and probably the whole Kingdom Hearts universe to this day. I mean, this whole fight against Scar became one of my personal favorites, and even though it's not necessarily something that happens in the movie, it's just really, really well done and set up. So, yeah, this helped me understand. Kingdom Hearts helped me understand movies a lot better, especially when they were just Disney. Even though they were just Disney, sorry. But yeah, I was just a little kid. I was a bit sensitive to some parts of it. But this kind of helped me power through, and I was able to officially watch the actual movie, The Lion King, all the way through for the very first time. And boy, was I glad I did. Because every time I watch it, I now think of this world, and I think of Kingdom Hearts in general. I think every time Disney makes something, I think of Kingdom Hearts in general. Seeing if they'll implement stuff like this into it. So, yeah, that's all I got for this one. I will share my thoughts on the next when it comes up, which should not be too long from now. So here is one of the Kingdom Hearts games that I've definitely wanted to try and finish. I started it like last year at the beginning of summer, but I never really got a chance to finish it. Just because I've wanted to try and do other things, and I got caught up with them, and I got caught up in them. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. I got caught up in them. And yeah, darn it, what was I gonna say? Yeah, this was definitely one I wanted to try and do a series on and finish it. And I think all of the Kingdom Hearts series plus Nier Automata were like a huge bulk of the stuff I needed to finish from last year. Dream Drop Distance, it's not necessarily my favorite, but I really like a lot about it. It was a really good game, especially for Kingdom Hearts' 10th anniversary. In fact, I think I like it better than Birth by Sleep, even though this has a lot less content than Birth by Sleep itself, and Birth by Sleep is like the closest thing to an actual main Kingdom Hearts game, even though they were both interestingly done. And yeah, to be honest, I spent like my whole summer of 2013 getting caught up on Kingdom Hearts, playing the games I never really played other than 1 and 2. With 1 and 2 at the time were the only ones I ever played, and then I decided to start playing the DS games. I did 358 Days Over 2, which was the third one, and this would be the fourth one that I played. And then I played Recoded, Birth by Sleep, and then Chain of Memories on 1.5 HD Remix when it came out. And like I said, that is not something I necessarily want to go through again for personal reasons. And yeah, I can't think of anything else to say. So it was pretty interesting coming back to this game. I mean, I had a fresh start, a clean slate, and some things were easier for me, which I'm glad was one of the things that was different, but it's taking a bit to actually just get back to where I was, because, like, I made myself OP in this game before too long. Like, I played with Riku the most. I made him, like, 20 levels higher than Sora, and yeah, I was able to beat the secret boss, Julius, whom I hear has his own special animation, which I need to probably try and take a peek at sometime. But, yeah, I mean, I was, despite all, I was really glad to come back to this game. And I think I'm going in circles now with what I'm saying. So I think I'm probably gonna leave y'all with the rest of this video clip, and I'll start talking when the next one comes on. Because I just don't want to, like, be talking for so long, for a certain amount of time, just straight up, because it kind of messes me up a little bit. I mean, I can barely think, my voice tires out. Yeah, just, not because I don't want to talk or anything, it's just, when I feel like I'm out for something, I just leave it there and move on to the next. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say for Dream Drop Distance, and I will talk to you when the next video clip comes on, which is only a few seconds away, to be honest.
Take this!
Are you okay, Riku?
Yeah. Thanks,
So let's talk about Fragmentary Passage a little bit, shall we? I believe it was the only Kingdom Hearts game I wasn't gonna do a series on, cause, like, for some reason, it wouldn't allow me to record. It disabled my share function when I got to the ending bit when I finally teamed up with Mickey. But I believe there's been an update for that that's fixed that, so given that, I believe when the new year comes around, it's gonna be like one of the first new series that I do. Especially since Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming up, and I wanted to find a way to celebrate its coming. Kinda the same deal with Resident Evil. Hopefully I can get a hold of the original game, because I was thinking about maybe doing a series on that. But enough about that for right now. Let's talk about this a little bit more, shall we? So, Fragmentary Passage, it's a bit complicated on where to place it in the Kingdom Hearts timeline. I mean, Mickey tells a story that takes place between the first Birth by Sleep and Kingdom Hearts 1. It coincides with some of the events that occur during it. But mainly he's telling the story, like, in the time after Dream Drop Distance occurs. And at the ending of this game, it sets up the very actual beginning for Kingdom Hearts 3. So, yeah, even though it was pretty short, I really enjoyed it. It was, like, one of the better ones out of the whole series that I played. A lot of people are saying that this is technically the demo for Kingdom Hearts 3. And I can agree with that in a lot of terms. And I still wish it had more to it, to be honest. You know what? Never mind. I can't really think of anything else to say for it. So I will see you guys in the next bit of this recap. So, around April, I started doing my first actual reaction videos. I didn't have an actual separate camera, so I didn't know how to include my face, so I just recorded using my phone and just record what was playing on screen and talking.
This Keyblade.
Is that?
No. No. No!
Mickey. You're too late.
Son of a... Holy crap! Well, that was quite a twist. God of War was the next major title that was coming out, and it was one I have been looking forward to ever since I saw it in E3 2016. But before it came out, I purchased God of War 3, and I decided to do a series on it in order to celebrate its upcoming release. And I had first played this in 2016, like before I even saw that the new one in E3 was coming out. And I had only rented it from Redbox for like a day. And I wanted to see how far I could get, and I only got as far as Hera's hedge maze. I could not figure it out, and yeah, by that time it was time for me to return it, and it was not easy for me to play this game my first time around. I thought it was like one of the most difficult things I've ever played in my life, and I thought that until I played Dark Souls for the very first time. So, to be honest, I kind of turned it to easy mode after a certain amount of time because of this one difficult bit with a giant Cerberus, which was like the hardest piece of shit I ever faced. So I just was sick and tired of having to start over from him again and again. So I just caved, and I just wanted to get this game done. But it's not like turning into easy mode really made much of a difference, especially when I got to the final battle with Zeus. I mean, he did not make things feel like I was playing it on easy mode. So, yeah, when I was able to luckily get this done and on my channel before 2018 God of War came out, and I was just... Yeah, this was actually a pretty fun game for me to play. I just found it really difficult in a lot of areas. Oh, also, in this bit, I was just waiting for the music to catch up so I could deliver the final blow to Zeus. It just seemed a bit more epic that way. So that's enough on God of War. That's all I have to say for it. Well, God of War 3 at least. And I'm guessing you can tell what's coming up next. So God of War 3 was like the series I finished just before God of War 2018 came out. And that's the way I intended it to be. So the moment it came out, I started playing right away. In fact, I had intended for my God of War series to be the very first commentary series I ever did. Trying, bring some vocal action to my Let's Plays. That did not bode over so well, sadly. And, well, I had also gotten another game, which I will be showing a little bit later on, that I was also playing and trying to do a series for as well. So, well, and in addition to that, I had school, so I didn't really get to finish this series up until like early summer this year. So let's talk about this game in general. I really think it's really good. It's an interesting step in the whole God of War saga. And it's gonna be a lot more interesting when we see the sequels to this arc in Kratos' life. There were some bits I were hoping would be a bit more epic. There were some epic moments I wasn't expecting. And this dragon here falls somewhere in between them, to be honest. I was thinking there would be a little bit more to it. I figured we'd be flying all over this thing and hacking at it, rather than, being a basic stand and dodge arena kind of boss fight, if you know what I mean. But yeah, this was a pretty epic fight, to be honest. I probably just don't seem to find the credit where it's due or give it enough personal credit. But yeah, this dragon was one of the best moments in the whole game when it came out. So, in this game, Kratos isn't like his usual angry, always violent self. He's trying to raise his kid, Atreus, and hopefully he won't have to pass his past and curse down to him. which is easier said than done when things get complicated when he doesn't, and everyone else is urging him to, like, tell him what his past is. And this game, even though it's great, it's only a small step in what's to come. I mean, we hear a lot about the major gods, but we never really get to actually do anything with them. We only, like, encounter the minor ones, which is kind of like how the first God of War arc started. Like, I mean, you only fought one god, and that was Ares in the first God of War game. So, yeah, and so by next game, whenever it comes out, it should be a major step up from this. This one was, like, had the mood and setting of The Last of Us when it came out, only it's an actual father and son rather than, like, this guy and who bonds with a little girl. I mean, I'm not hating on The Last of Us. I love it to death, to be honest. And I was actually thinking about trying to do a full series on it as well, but I had, like, for some reason, I got copyright strike from YouTube for some reason. I don't know why. Because, I mean, yes, it was no commentary, but I was making sure that gameplay was, like, they said it was, like, too similar to someone else's. I don't know. But I'm not here to bitch about YouTube or anything. I'm here to, like, talk about my whole year in general. Again, I know I've said that before, like, a few times at least. Though each one I've had a different thing involved. So, Kratos is a lot different here. Not in terms of just his mood and all. He also plays a lot differently. I mean, yeah, he does get the Chaos Blades and all later on in the game, but I mean, basically you're learning how to use, like, an axe called Leviathan, which is a Nordic weapon, and it's not necessarily bound to you in a way, unless you, like, wish for it to be bound to you. Like, you can call it back like it's Thor's hammer, which is pretty self-explanatory, seeing as how this whole game is based in Norse mythology. Also, this game was the very first I had ever taken a slight interest in Norse mythology. Because up until this game, I had never really heard of some of the characters like Magni, Modi, Thor's kids, and Thor's other brother, Baldur. I had never heard of any of them until this game. And basically all my understanding of, like, the whole Norse universe, it came from the Thor movies and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, it took a while for my hype to just stay on when this game was coming out, because it, like, took 2 years from when it was first announced at E3. So it kind of died down after a bit, and I hadn't taken a much bigger look at the stuff they had released before the actual game came out, like extra gameplay and trailers and all that. I hadn't taken a much larger look at that until, like, at the very last moment when it was just about to come out. So yeah, that was just a basic attempt for me to rebuild my hype. Okay, so I think that basically sums up my whole experience with God of War. I mean, I found it to be a really fun game. I really enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed playing this, and number 3, the only thing I'm actually majorly upset with is that Democracy beat me to the cheese, because I was actually going to try and do my first boss ranking video with either this or number 3, but he beat me to it, and I know I can still do stuff like it, but it won't necessarily have the same effect, especially since it's coming from a YouTuber who is leagues above me. So, yeah, that's all I have to say for God of War, and I will talk about what's to come next when this is done.
Wow, we actually did it. And you!
But nobody's killed a dragon for hundreds of years. Not since the grand culling of the worms. And unless I'm mistaken, you did all that for me.
You are mistaken. The dragon was simply in our path, nothing more.
You deny it all you want, but you saved me, and that deserves compensation.
What are these?
Braided mistletoe arrows, straighter than Heimdall and perfectly weighted.
Oh. Thanks?
Oh. Okay. Hold on. Ooh, not that. Have you seen my brother again?
Yeah, he said you lost your talent.
Oh, and that I'm selfish? No, I'm sure. That I value a weapon's look? No, over its purpose. That I'm pretentious? No, and uptight, fussy. I know what he thinks, but he can't hurt me any. Ah! Burn that.
Believe it or not, I was actually a little worried about Detroit Become Human when it was coming out. There was just some feeling in my bones that didn't really feel right. But when I did play it, it was actually a lot better than I had expected it to be. It's one of those stories about AI that becomes self-aware, but it does so in an interesting way, and you get to choose how you do it. It's like Telltale games, or Until Dawn, or Heavy Rain, but it's by the people who made Heavy Rain. It's just in the genre where you build your own story, is what I'm trying to say. I have a hard time trying to figure out who's my favorite out of the three main characters, but I guess you could say Kara and Connor are my top two. I just enjoy the relationships they have with the side characters like Lieutenant Anderson and Alice. It's just really awesome to watch these guys together. And I'm surprised this hasn't been made an actual movie. I feel like it could have actually done well as an actual movie. There were a lot of cinematic moments, and it probably would have made Hollywood look a lot better than it is today.
I can't let them get away. They won't. They'll never make it to the
So basically, yeah, I felt like it was a really great choose your own path game, and I enjoyed playing it to its fullest. I played the demo when it first came out on PS4, and then I took a break because I had school. I was just finishing it up, my freshman year of college. I mean, when summer came around, this was like one of the first games I started playing. I also went back to like a couple other series that I had not yet finished. One of them is coming up next.
Are you okay?
And then I guess the major one that I'm talking about is coming up after that. It's been a really, really long time since I've played a video game that was based off of something else. Especially when it comes to anime. I mean, up until like earlier this year, I have never really been into any anime of any kind whatsoever. And this one was actually the first. So, yeah, Attack on Titan has actually become my first, only, and if I am to get into any others, probably my favorite anime of all time. And to be honest, this game is what actually got me to take a deeper look into it, to be honest. I recall like the first one being released like last year, and then they released the second one, which included some extra content for season 2, and then some. It released earlier this year, and then I just, for the fun of it, decided to take a look at it, and next thing I know, I'm actually interested. And then I started taking a look at the anime, and I found out that this was based off of it, and then I started watching it, and yeah, I got caught up between the first 2 seasons, and I watched the first half of season 3 that came out in the summer, and yeah, I really enjoy this a lot. I really enjoy anything that has to do with Attack on Titan. Well, except Junior High, maybe. Just that kind of stuff is not my thing, nor will it ever be my thing. So, yeah, after a bit of extra time, I started reading the manga, if and when I could, and I got caught up all the way to chapter 112, which released earlier this month. And I actually have a friend who is going to be cosplaying Mikasa pretty soon. I'm getting a Snapchat from one of my friends. So, yeah, I kinda got thrown off by that. Sorry, guys. But yeah, being able to play this game and be a part of the Attack on Titan experience in a way as my own personal self, it was pretty fun. I mean, things did get a bit hard, and I'd have to like change up my gear a little bit, as well as like improve on some of my skills in order to get caught up and make my gameplay a bit easier. But yeah, there was nothing I enjoyed more than actually doing what this whole franchise is about, and that's killing these giant monsters called Titans. And I must say, whoever came up with them has a really, really interesting imagination. I think I said that about another game earlier. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I said that earlier about one of the other games that I already talked about in this video. But anywho, I think it's the whole story behind it, aside from them killing monsters, that is really interesting. It's like, it in a way parallels Nier Automata and the way the story's told. I mean, they're both really, really good. I guess in terms of original anime, Attack on Titan is the better version, and in terms of original Japanese game, Nier Automata is better. I mean they're both the same. One's just a video game. One's a video game, and one just started out as an anime. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Sorry, guys. And learning that the main character is not the only one able to turn into a special kind of Titan, that's what made things a bit interesting, and also at the same time pretty cool to know that they're different types. Especially like the big guy shown here, who's my favorite out of all of them. So, yeah. Also, one more thing. I feel like the whole fandom hates on Aaron, the main character, a bit too much, if you ask me. I mean, sure, he has anger issues, and some of the stuff that comes out of his mouth is a bit arrogant, but if you just look at things from his perspective, you can definitely sympathize with him a little bit more, especially with what he's been through. So yeah, that's all I have to say about this game and Attack on Titan in general. Yeah, that's all I have to say. So Prey was like the biggest thing I definitely needed to finish up, especially from last year. I tried doing a series on it when I first got it in summer 2017, but I kind of screwed the pooch in a way, because like a certain clip of mine wouldn't record, and I needed to start over, and then I got preoccupied with other stuff, and since then I had slowly been working on it, but I felt it was high time to actually finish my series with it. So this game overall, it's pretty fun, and I can see it being a cult classic in the near years. It's a shame that the sequel was canceled. And yeah, I still have to try out the DLC soon. Hopefully I can try and do that next year. But overall, yeah, this was a really fun game. Being stuck on a space station, having to fight off aliens that can turn into things or had other special abilities, which you could make your own as well. This entire game is just one big sandbox, and I never get tired of playing in it every time I come back to it. So I did die a lot, especially on my first time playing it. It's just sometimes I'd run out of certain resources and the aliens would overtake me. Yeah, and there's also this huge one which I consider to be yet another modern version of Resident Evil's Nemesis, in a way. But luckily he's not the main focus, and you don't necessarily have to like worry about him all game long, just like through the major middle section of it. And it took me a bit to actually understand, like, what each character was about, especially Alex, who is the main character's brother and is the one who talks to you the most. It took me a while to try and figure him out, to be honest, and even though I really ended up liking him at the end, I just couldn't let him go through with what he was planning to do. I just couldn't trust his motives. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts on Prey.
take you for what you did. You could have left me to die. It's more important than ever now that we finish this the right way. Take care of the null-wave device. I'll head for the bridge as soon as I catch my breath.
So when I was finally all caught up, I finally was able to sit down and do a full Let's Play with Dark Souls. This is the remastered version that came out, like, in May, and it was something I was actually really excited for. I was really excited to be able to play the original Dark Souls game. And, okay, to be honest, I actually tried to do something with it when the new year came around, like, in January. But yeah, since my Xbox One had limited recording functions and all that, I highly doubted I could do a full Let's Play that way, so I just focused on the bosses that I could at the time. So yeah, I tried doing Dark Souls, the original, since my Xbox One had backwards compatibility. And so that made it this game I played with my Xbox One. Played on my Xbox One, sorry. And let's just say my experience with it made things a lot easier for the most part. I mean, to be honest, I kinda played a little cheap, just because I had already played it in a way beforehand. Kinda the same deal with another certain Dark Souls game that's gonna be coming up pretty soon. Yeah, I kind of played a little cheap with it by bringing in help because I had already done that. I had already done those bits before, and I just didn't want to go through the same pain I did with them again, so I just wanted to make things a little bit easier. So, since I had a PS4 and this was coming out on PS4, I had the chance to do a full Let's Play series of it, and well, it also came with the DLC, which made things a lot more interesting. I was just about done with the main game but I wanted to make sure I could play the DLC before I did the final boss, so I just stopped playing the first Dark Souls on Xbox One. But when I got the DLC with this, I could officially not only finish my boss series, but I could also do a full Let's Play series. And there were a lot of surprising moments with this DLC, especially when it comes to the bosses. The majority of them, 3 out of 4, I beat on the very first try. And among those was this guy, Manus, Father of the Abyss, believe it or not, and Democracy, who is like the top guy for Souls games, especially since he ranked them all from easiest to hardest and worst to best. He said that this guy here is the hardest in the entire game. But I guess things were made a bit easy. So I had no help, and I beat him on the first try. Which is probably one of my biggest achievements. Sorry, I just need a moment to catch my breath and think of what to say next. So, I guess what made me survive this the way I did, I guess I had some form of tank build, because he wasn't really doing as much damage as I thought he was going to do to me. I mean, I was blocking a lot, but there were also times I wasn't blocking, and he didn't really do as much damage as I thought he would. So I don't know if it had something to do with my slight tank build, or what. I don't know. But yeah, this guy was a real blast to fight. Especially with Artorias. They were both really, really cool fights, and I was glad to finally experience them, because, yeah, I had started getting into Souls like 2016. If you remember, I was doing stuff for Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne at the time. I was thinking the only other game that I could do if I ever got the chance was Dark Souls 2. And that's something I've been wanting to try out for a very long time. I don't care what the people say about it. It has a lot of interesting stuff by the looks of it, and I wanted to try it out. And apparently I was able to this year. It just took a while. But we'll come back to it when it's that game's time to shine. So, yeah. The bosses I hadn't faced yet, some of them I actually beat on the first try, especially Gwen, to be honest. And even though I hadn't beaten some others on the first try my first time around with them, I beat them on the first try when I was starting to do my Let's Play for this game, which is interesting. Some of them I brought in help, some I didn't. Ceaseless Discharge I was actually able to get lucky with this time around, and he didn't one-shot me, and I didn't have to go through hell with him as I did before, because I actually was able to trigger his little cinematic event when you reached the edge of the arena, or at least the end of the path of his arena. And screw the haters, he's one of my favorite bosses as well. So, yeah, I really enjoyed being able to play Dark Souls, finally, and being able to do a series on it, and I am really glad I achieved what I did with this game, overall. And that's all I have to say for Dark Souls, especially the remastered version. And even though people are saying the remastered... Oh wait, hang on, one last thing. Even though the remastered version sucks, I found it to be pretty awesome, because I had never played the original Dark Souls before, and even though it's just a graphics update, I don't care. So after I was finished with Dark Souls, I realized I wasn't entirely as caught up with my series as I thought I was, and I still needed to finish my Devil May Cry series. So I went back and started with the one I hadn't bothered with in a while, and that was Devil May Cry 4. The reason I quit was not only because of the difficulty, but it was also because of me having a screwy controller at the time. For some reason, it was doing things I didn't want it to. It was just a real pain in the butt to try and play that way, so I just dropped it for quite a while, and I didn't come back to it until like in the summer of 2018, this year. And even though what's being shown here isn't necessarily anything new that I did for it this year, I still feel like it's pretty awesome, so I just decided to include it. And the screwy controller thing, it didn't just affect this game, it also affected games like Crash, Evil Within 2, and I think also The Witcher as well. I don't necessarily know when it became a problem, but I didn't get around to being able to take care of it until like October, so, or November actually, so yeah. So Devil May Cry 4 is... It took me a while to get used to. Same thing for the other games, to be honest. But as I got used to one game, I got used to the others because of my experience with them. And yeah, that made things a lot easier for me in regards to the whole Devil May Cry franchise. So, it took me a little bit to actually... Hang on a second, I think I might need to sneeze.
Not yet! I'm not finished!
So, after I was done with Devil May Cry 4 and 3, after I had finished my series for those games, I finally was able to sit down and play the very first Devil May Cry in the new ported Trilogy. And I must say, even though it still had some difficulty, it was pretty basic for the most part, and I was really glad to be able to not worry about things being too complex or too hard for once. I hear that Devil May Cry 2's the easiest out of all of them, if I'm not mistaken. And that's pretty much why people think it sucks. But to be honest, I really don't mind that at all too much. Sometimes it's just nice to catch a breather, is what I'm trying to say. And also later on down the road, I was able to do my first boss ranking video, and I did it on this game, and I'm planning on doing it for the others. I did my first two on this one and Devil May Cry 3, and I'm working on my one for 4 right now. But with things like school, I kind of had to take somewhat of a break from it since I wouldn't have much time to do so. So yeah, I was actually surprised in some bits of it, to be honest, because I was thinking it would be like really hard in some areas, but to be honest, those areas I actually found to be really, really easy, especially on what's being shown here with the Nightmare boss fight, which everyone just says they're sick and tired of, especially in the harder difficulties. But I didn't really find them too hard at all, to be honest. It was just rather daunting. It took me a while to figure out what to do for it, but once I did, all these fights just basically became a breeze. In fact, not once did I die to Nightmare. Or, I think, if anything, bosses like Griffin and the mini-bosses and Mundus proved a much larger challenge. And even though he's not necessarily my favorite, I really enjoy the Nightmare fight. It plays a lot differently than the others, given what you have to do in order to fight him, but yeah. Basically, I really enjoyed playing this game, and I think it's kind of hard to say it's my #1 favorite, but it's definitely up there, and at least maybe #2 for me. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say about this game, and now the entire Devil May Cry series in general. This was like the very last Devil May Cry game I played this year, and overall for right now. Well, technically that's not true. I actually did do the demo for Devil May Cry 5, but we'll get into that later.
Dante! Dante, why did you save my life?
Because you look like my mother. Now get out of my sight. The next time we meet, it won't be like this.
Dante!
Don't come any closer, you devil! You may look like my mother, but you're nowhere close to her. You have no soul. You have the face, but you'll never have her fire!
So one of the things I've wanted to do for a really long time ever since it first came out was play the Dark Souls 3 DLC. You see, a while back I had traded in Dark Souls 3. I don't necessarily remember how or why, but yeah, but when the Fire Fades edition came out, and it came with everything, I figured I should try and get it back one day and hopefully do a series on it. So I was eventually able to do so, and I did a full Let's Play series on Dark Souls 3, as well as did another boss video for it, given the DLC's release. And even though I found the majority of it hard and not really like I wanted to just go through the rest of it, there are also bits of it like what's shown here that really got my heart going and just made me want to power through no matter what, because it's just freaking awesome. So yeah, I'd say the biggest thing I was looking forward to out of this whole experience was being able to fight Dark Eater Midir, which is this dragon shown here. And I really gotta find a way to not make my words end in rhyme. So yeah, Midir was actually one of the bosses I was wishing I would beat on the first try, but kinda knew I wouldn't anyway, so yeah, but every time I lost to him, I didn't really get upset or anything. I didn't want to, like, just lose my entire mind. But he was just one of those bosses where, like, aw, man, I am enjoying this. I can't wait for the actual day I beat him someday, but he's just too awesome. Not because he's a dragon or anything. I mean, that's not the reason why. I mean, I love dragons to death. But the way he's portrayed, the way he's set up, it makes him the best, not only dragon fight in Dark Souls, but to me he is one of the best boss fights in the whole Souls series. He is one I've been wanting to face for a very long time, ever since I first saw him when he came out. And my experience with him was worth every penny. Same thing with Gale, but it wasn't really as breathtaking as this guy. So if I were to do a top 10 dragons on my channel, this guy is going to be really, really high up. I wouldn't say he's number one, but he's going to be very, very close to it. I will tell you that right now. And I was actually thinking about trying to do a top 10 dragons to celebrate for the return of Spyro and his Reignited trilogy, which released last month. But I wasn't entirely sure if the way I was going to be doing it would, like, infringe any copyright or anything like that, so I kind of held off. Same thing for my top 10 demons, because that's something I wanted to try and do for Doom's return and maybe Devil May Cry's return as well. But for the most part, I made my boss ranking boss ranking videos part of the celebration for the return of Devil May Cry. Fun fact, actually, I actually got to meet Johnny Young Bosch at Comic-Con this year. Yeah, he came to my town's Comic-Con, and I met him there by chance. Really chill guy, and he was the first actor I had ever met, and he was really, really generous, to be honest. In my opinion, when I told him he was the first actor I had ever actually met in real life, he gave me his autograph for free. Because, like, at Comic-Con, you mainly have to pay for something like that. And it was just really, really hard to keep my composure. I mean, for a guy like me, I shouldn't necessarily be a total fangirl or anything, but it was just a lot to take in, and my mind was really just about to blow like a volcano. But enough about that. Let's talk about the rest of my return to Dark Souls 3. So, kind of the same deal with Dark Souls 1. Since I played it before, I kind of brought in help for some bits because I had already experienced them and I just did not want to go through them again. And for the most part, stuff I didn't do, I just did solo. And I was actually surprised that I was able to beat Nier solo, because I was really tempted to beat him with help. And it seemed like the best course of action, given how tough people say he is. And I won't deny he is tough. He can kill you in like 2 to 3 hits, given, well, my build at least. But I learned how to just power through, and that's what made this whole fight fun for me, just learning how to manage this dragon. And by the time it was over, he had definitely become one of my favorites, and even though I have used him before in some of my other videos this year, I just can't help but use him just one more time. I had thoughts on trying to mix things up and use a different boss, like maybe Gale or the Champion's Gravetender, actually, but none of them compared to Nier, in my opinion. To be honest, I haven't actually chosen an ending for this game yet. I've just done the final boss and that's just about it. I still need to, like, pick an ending, and when I do, I will show it. So, technically, I'm not really done right now, but I beat the Soul of Cinder. I've done everything else. I just need to choose an ending, which is, like, the hardest thing for me right now. So, yeah, that's basically all I have to say about Dark Souls 3 and its DLC. So after I was done with all the other Souls games, I decided to try and get my hands on Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin Edition. That way I could have the full experience with this game. Because even though people say it's bad, I actually found it enjoyable when I was watching it, and I really wanted to try and experience it for myself. And it was a huge breather for me in a certain fashion, because, well, I was getting a little tired of the major difficulty in the Souls games, and I just wanted to, like, play something a bit average or easy for once, and this game delivered. I mean, in terms of areas, it had some neat design, and in terms of bosses, it had some redeeming qualities, such as this guy here. I mean, this is probably the most hated version, and one of the more hated bosses in this game. So, yeah. But to be honest, I found Blue Kool-Aid Smelter Demon a lot easier than regular Smelter Demon when I was fighting him. And like Democracy said, most of the difficulty just came from the stupid level and the way it was set up. 'Cause I had to cut my way through so many traps and difficult nights just to get another whack at this thing, just as he said in his boss ranking video for it. But what am I trying to say? Some of the worst bosses that people hate so much, I actually ended up liking. And this guy is definitely one of them. You want to know another one? Ancient Dragon. Fight me. I don't care what people say. I really enjoyed that fight. Even though he's a bit tough if you're not careful. But I actually was able to manage this fight and the other one pretty well. And up until the DLC, I did not experience any major difficulty whatsoever at all. The majority of the bosses were really easy, and I beat on my first try, and I could probably make a whole video, a huge video, just based on how many bosses I beat on the first try in this game. I mean, I've done it before with with a couple other Souls games, at least. And I was thinking about probably trying to do it for this one as well, but this one's probably going to be my biggest one, to be honest. It's gonna take a while as well. So, yeah, I don't know why, I just did not find Blue Kool-Aid here to be as mind-boggling difficult as people said he was gonna be. Somehow, his varied timing with his attacks, they were a lot more manageable than I thought they would be. And yeah, I think there were a lot more difficult bosses in the DLC than just this guy. I mean, I'll be honest, the DLC bosses I did not really beat on my first try. But there were those who were a lot more difficult than the one you're looking at here in this clip. I will tell you that right now, from my personal opinion. And even though Dark Souls 2 isn't really the best game, according to most, I actually consider it a personal favorite of mine, and probably like a lot higher up in the way I rank these games. But which is kind of hard to do because I find all the Souls games to be really, really awesome. This one's just like, I don't know why, it's just my personal favorite out of all of them. And yet I still have to play Demon Souls, and yet I highly doubt I ever will, unless I get a capture card in a PS3 again. Because basically I've been using my share function on my PS4 to make videos like this. And when it comes to special projects, I use my Final Cut, which is how I'm doing this video, to do my videos. But I don't necessarily have an actual capture card or special camera that I could use to do what other YouTubers do, so that's why I do things the way I do them. And that's basically all I have to say about my recording tactics and Dark Souls 2. Since I was doing full Let's Play series on all the Souls games at the time, I decided to go back and do one for Bloodborne. And while I was doing that, I just decided to start a whole new game for it. Because, well, given where I was, I screwed myself over to a point where things had become so difficult for me, I didn't think I could make much more progress than I already had at the time. So yeah, I just decided to have a fresh, clean slate with it, and just replay it to its fullest. And believe it or not, I had a much easier time than when I first played this game. Especially with one of the first early bosses, like Father Gascoigne, who was like one of the toughest sons of bitches I had ever faced. So returning to Bloodborne was actually pretty interesting for me, really. I had to like do a lot of stuff all over again, but at the same time, given my experience with the game from before, things were a little bit easier for me. Such as some of the boss fights, the enemies were still a pain in the ass, but I had a much better time playing this game this time around than when I first played it back in 2016. And I also know people who are starting out their series with this game and have yet still to complete it. But hey, whatever floats their boat. They do things their way, I'll do things my way. It doesn't matter. But this game is indeed one of my all-time favorites. Not because it's not my favorite Souls game, to be honest, but it is indeed just one of my favorite games of all time. In fact, all the Souls games are like some of my personal favorites of all time. But I think this one has a special way to stand out out of all of them. The fact this is based off of actual Lovecraftian lore, it's pretty interesting. It actually got me a little bit into Lovecraft when I was first hearing of it. It's a complete different take on the Souls games. I mean, you're not like fighting knights and dragons, you're fighting werewolves and aliens and all sorts of different kinds of Frankenstein mutants. And it was actually the first kind of game in its genre to introduce a new approach to the Souls games, which is why I liked it so much. I wasn't sure about it at first, but Bloodborne is and always will be like one of the best things I have ever played in my life. And also, if you wanted to know why I was putting Souls games back to back, it was because of Code Vein, which was supposed to come out this year, but sadly delayed till next. So I didn't necessarily do anything absolutely new video game wise until late September, and that was when I first got Hollow Knight, if I'm not mistaken. And it was either earlier, yeah, it was in September when I first got Hollow Knight and decided to try it out. I had seen a lot of cool stuff from this game, and I figured, why not? So far I've only done one video on it, and which makes it a series I definitely need to finish ASAP, especially since I have a whole bunch of time before anything new comes out for me to play. I'm just in scramble the jets mode. For me, that means I'm just trying to do stuff as quick as possible and as much as possible in such little time. So, Hollow Knight is not really a part of the Souls series, but it's in the genre of what you would consider the Souls games to be, whatever you wish to call them. I just call them mind-boggling difficult RPGs, or mind-boggling difficult video games. So, but even though they're difficult, they're really fun to play. And this game was one of the reasons I was gonna try and get a Nintendo Switch, because I heard it was coming out on Nintendo Switch, but then I heard it was also coming out on PS4, so yeah, I figured why not try and do a series with it on there. It might be better. And like I said in previous bits of this video, I've been preoccupied with other stuff because I need to try and, do something with other series for once, and I'll get more into that later on. But yeah, so far I've made very little progress with Hollow Knight, even though I've spent a lot of time with that game. And that's basically all I have to say for it. So here's like one of the last and probably one of the best major titles I got to play this year, Marvel's Spider-Man, which was announced first in E3 2016. This game was something that everyone's been looking forward to, or was something everyone's been looking forward to. And it was also the very first piece of media that introduced me to characters such as Screwball and Mr. Negative. But that's not the important bit of this game. What's important is the whole actual original story behind it. It's like a basic start over for Spider-Man. Like, it doesn't start at the very beginning when he becomes Spider-Man. It takes place 8 years afterwards, and so, yeah, it has the basic beginning concept like Spider-Man Homecoming does. And, well, some villains actually weren't introduced until now, to be honest. I mean, we haven't even seen Green Goblin and Venom yet, and they're two of his biggest foes. But this year it was all about the Sinister Six, and what am I trying to say? It was all about, it was all about specific others as well. And the DLC, it was pretty good. It just felt a bit different to me, and it just didn't have the same feel, and I think I like the main game a lot better, to be honest. But what I like about this game is, like, the original concept it has. Like, it has an original story, original gameplay, though there are some bits and pieces it takes from other things, like the movies and games that came before it. And I just gotta say, every bit of it was really well done. I enjoyed everything that came out of it. The fights against the villains were so cinematic to me, and I made sure on my end when I was playing I could make sure they stayed that way. There's really not much else to say, but I'm surprised that this wasn't... Well, if I'm not mistaken, it was nominated for Game of the Year. I'm just surprised it didn't make it, but can't say I blame titles such as God of War or Red Dead Redemption for claiming that crown for themselves. Yeah, I still need to try and play Red Dead Redemption 2, even though I haven't played 1, but by the looks of it, it takes place before 1, so I guess it's a good place to start. So, yeah, I think my favorite bit of this game was, like, my final fight against Mr. Negative, which is being shown here. It was just probably the best whole fight in the game. The Easter eggs were pretty neat. You got to use specific suits that you've seen before in the movies, or comics, or I guess maybe the animated shows as well, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that bit, but... So yeah, this was a game I really enjoyed, and I really did like coming back to it and playing the DLC. I feel a lot more personally comfortable in the main game and what was happening during it. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Spider-Man.
My will is stronger than yours!
We'll see about that. Can't give up. He's almost down. I know. But this is the wrong way, Martin.
Alien Isolation was definitely a game I never thought I'd come back to. I first played it when it came out in 2014, and the only way I could was on my PS3 at the time, but I really wanted to play it on the more modern consoles, such as PS4, and yeah. It is, without a doubt, one of the most heart-pounding and scariest games of all time. I don't care what anyone else says. Though, right now it feels a little bit underrated than what it should be. It's like it's lost all its touch over time. Which is something I wish didn't happen, because it's a really great game. I mean, it doesn't really give you much of a chance to just fight, which is what most people would prefer to do. But the whole story behind it, but with it taking place between Alien and Aliens, and being in the footsteps of Ellen Ripley's daughter, Amanda, and not to mention the fact that they brought back the original cast for some special stuff, it really makes it a title for the history books. And if I'm not mistaken, I think my most present run is definitely my most intense. I mean, I think I had to turn it down a notch because the Aliens AI just was getting a bit of a... It was becoming a little bit of a nuisance. Just kept popping up at times that I didn't want it to, and there were just some bits I couldn't get past because of it. So, yeah, this was one of the things that I decided to do for October and Halloween. Play some scary games. And how could I say no to this one? I really missed it. I really enjoyed playing it when it first came out. And God, I missed 2014 and 2015. Those were really good years for me. Not video game wise, but just personal wise. But yeah, even though it was intense at most parts, it was actually pretty fun. I mean, it's like you're playing a major game of hide and seek against a computer that has the intelligence of Skynet. Bad joke, probably. But yeah, the Aliens AI is extremely unpredictable. It's like it has a mind of its own, and you have no idea what it's going to do next. But that's what makes it so much fun. A little bit annoying, but mainly fun. I just wish I could play the DLC. I might actually get a chance to pretty soon, to be honest, now that I think about it. So, yeah, I was kind of hoping for a good ending at first, but it just turned out to be satisfactory. But that's okay. I mean, horror movies, they rarely have too many good endings, especially when it comes to Crypt TV. There's barely a single good ending for their movies. But who's to say that it has to be a very happy ending to have a good story? And that's basically what Alien Isolation showed me. And I'm quite surprised it's not called Aliens Isolation, given the fact that there's more than one in this game. It's one of those situations where you supposedly defeat the main bad guy, and apparently there's more than one. So, yeah. And you could definitely say that the bits where the aliens showed up were the most fun for me. just figuring out how to deal with it every time it showed up. I mean, this game is definitely what you would say a modern Resident Evil Nemesis looks like in a certain fashion. I mean, you have a monster that's chasing you throughout the entirety of the game, and it doesn't stop until the very end. So, yeah. And this one definitely puts the survival and survival horror, especially since you're not trying to fight anything, or at least you can't fight anything without severe consequences. And you have to be extremely careful and just use what you can in the world of the video game to your advantage in order to survive. And, well, for this video I wanted to make sure I had a decent amount of alien action, such as what's being shown here. While at the same time it doesn't show up completely often, and it instills a feeling of dread. So, there's really not much else to say about this game, except that I've really missed it, and I was really glad to play it again, especially for this year's Halloween month. It's a shame I didn't do anything special for Halloween, because I got sick that day, and I spent it in bed watching videos on the new Call of Cthulhu game, which I have not yet played, but want to. I must say, the Alien franchise has always been a personal favorite of mine. And between the two sides of Alien and Predator, I think I like Alien more, and I think they've had a lot more success in regards to their own personal series or franchise. Even though, in, I guess, both regards to modern day movies, they've both lost their luster. But still, I enjoy them nonetheless, as long as I get to see more actual face-hugging, chest-bursting, head-biting, flame-throwing action. So yeah, that's basically all I have to say about Alien Isolation.
I am attempting to dock on the tow platform below your spaceflight terminals. We can take survivors.
So here's another game I decided to play for Halloween month, and for old time's sake, I decided to play the very first Evil Within, since I had not brought it to my channel just yet, and I've only done so for the Evil Within 2, and it's another game I've really missed playing. A lot of people seem to hate on it, and I can understand their perspectives in both regards, but this will always be a personal cult classic of mine, and if I'm not mistaken, it got really good reviews. I don't know why people hate it all of a sudden. So what I've shown here, I decided to just show some basic regular action rather than boss fights. I've only chosen boss fights because they seemed like the shortest and the sweetest way to go, but I think I could make it work with some different kinds of stuff, and I figured y'all might be tired of just seeing like a different boss fight or something going on in the background.
This place is a death trap. Is there
So,
anywhere safe at all?
yeah, I'm not really sure how the story's gonna continue in the Evil Within 3 once they make it. But
we must be going this way.
yeah.
Can't get away.
To be honest, I really like this game a lot better than the second one. Even though, in some regards, the second one improved a lot of things. I guess gameplay and mechanic-wise. And how some action bits were set up.
We must be collectively losing our minds.
Losing our minds. Losing our minds.
To be honest, when I first heard of this game, I had no idea what it was about, but when I delved into it further, it was not at all what I expected it to be, at least in terms of what I thought was actually happening that was causing all the horror.
Who the hell are you?
No, don't follow.
So, yeah, this is where it all began for Sebastian Castellanos. He is trapped in Beacon Mental Hospital's version and prototype of STEM, which is this little mental simulation world where people's minds are connected to a certain one, and if there's any lesson in life, it's don't hook it up to that of a serial killer or psychopath. Apparently in the second one they learned that, but apparently they can't involve anyone with mental issues that are extremely dangerous at all. We saw that with Father Theodore and Stefano Valentini. What am I trying to say? Stefano Valentini. Yeah, I was trying to make sure I pronounced his name the correct way. So, this is also a game I have yet to finish in terms of my Let's Play with it. It's kinda a bit difficult because it's taking me some time to readjust to it, because when I first played it, it didn't take too long, but I've just given like how quickly I've forgotten what this game's like, it's a bit tough at the moment. So I'm bound to make a few mistakes here and there, which I prefer not to. I prefer to be perfect when I'm playing games for you guys. Or at least so close to make the difference irrelevant. If it hadn't been for my friend Jeremy, I probably would have never gotten into this game. I mean, games like Dead Space and Alien were definitely the kind of horror games I would have been comfortable with, but This was one of the ones that broadened my horizons, along with Silent Hill and Resident Evil, the originals, at least. And I am sorely disappointed in myself for not playing PT when it was out at the time. I didn't have the PS4, and I barely had any time to download it and play it. Really wish I got the chance. It's a shame it'll never happen. So yeah, that's basically all for my thoughts on the Evil Within, first one, at least. And the wait, yeah, since I mentioned the second one, yeah, Evil Within in general, that's all I have to say. So towards the end of October, I finally decided to do reaction videos that featured my face, like regular YouTubers do. It wasn't easy. Finding a method for it was rather daunting for me. But I found a way to use my phone and also download the footage and just make sure they simultaneously play at the same time to make an actual reaction video. I don't have an actual camera other than my phone, but it seems to work quite well, to be honest. And boy, was I glad to do this just in time for Crypt TV's latest big hit, The Door in the Woods. It was really good, to be honest. And while I've watched Crypt TV before, this one definitely took the cake for me at the moment, for the time being. We've still got plenty of other stuff to look at when next year comes out, so yeah. Only 2 left. Now this right here is something I've dreamt of ever since Crash Insane Trilogy was announced. I just didn't expect it to come out so soon. Spyro Reignited Trilogy is probably my biggest dream come true in a very long time. It was first announced earlier in April, and it was set to come out in September, but it was delayed till November, but hey, that's cool. I was just surprised to play it this year, seeing as how Crash's 20th anniversary was 2016, but it came out in 2017, and I figured it'd be the same kind of pattern for Spyro. He would be announced in 2018, but would probably come out in 2019, next year. But I'm glad he was released on the year of his birthday, and his 20th birthday, yeah. And I must say, this was probably one of the best games I've ever played in a long time. At least in terms of a remake. I mean, it's not perfect, to be honest. There are some bits that fell short and some bits that exceeded my expectations. Such as the levels, some of the music. Almost everything about those aspects were perfect. Some of the character redesigns were a little iffy for me, like the sorceress, and oh, don't get me started on the first couple of Spyro 3 bosses. Oh my god, who redesigned Buzz and Spike to look like cutesy midgets and DreamWorks characters? Oh my god. That was probably the biggest disappointment for me in terms of everything in this trilogy. Everything else was pretty good. I mean, the voice acting was a little lacking in some areas. Others, it actually excelled, and probably even improved upon the original. I'm really glad they brought back some of the old voice actors for characters like Spyro, Ripto, Professor, and Sergeant Bird, of course, are Tom Kenny, just as Spyro is, so of course that's obvious. But they also brought back the guy who did Agent 9, which is surprising, and he actually still got it from the way I see it. And even though I wasn't entirely sure of some parts at first, like the dragon's redesigns, they just blew me away. I was just in shock and awe. Especially for, yeah, like, I guess how they built upon some cutscenes involving them. Even in the later games, to be honest. Like, they gave some characters some extra voice acting just to try and build upon it. I think they did a really good job in that regard. And I'm glad that this trilogy came out, especially when it did. Not only did it come out on Spyro's birthday, his 20th birthday, but this also gave me the chance to play the Spyro game I've always wanted to play but never had the chance to, which is Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, or Gateway to Glimmer, which I find to be a much catchier name, I think. But being able to go back and relive my childhood, and not to mention the fact, keep myself up to date with everything I was doing, like make sure everything was 100% complete. This was probably one of the best things I did this year, and I'm glad it happened towards the end of the year. It's like one of the very last series I did. Also, the video clips you see here are like a bit out of order, just from, I guess, least to most important to me. I mean, I played them for Spyro 1 to 3, like in chronological order, as they should be. But I kind of just put them out of order because there were just some bits I felt were a bit more meaningful. So, yeah, that's why we jumped ahead to Spyro 3. Here. And I gotta say, even though Toys for Bob screwed the pooch in some areas, especially as I had expected them to, especially since they did Skylanders and all, this is what they should have done from the very beginning. This was what I have been waiting for, like, my whole life, to return to the original Spyro games. And hopefully get a proper sequel to one of them. Also, a lot of people tend to hate on Legend of Spyro, which is, in Lord of the Rings fashion, it's like, just go look at it yourself if you haven't seen it already. But even though it's not as good as the originals, it still holds a special place in my heart. I really enjoyed playing those games. I think I played the heck out of Eternal Night, to be honest. It's kind of hard to determine which out of those three is my favorite, but yeah. Also, when I was reading a lot of YouTube comments when this was out and ahead of time, before its release date, and it showed some stuff. I mean, I didn't necessarily like watch too much of it. I just read the comments. I gotta say, y'all were right in some aspects. I mean, Gulp was a lot harder than I had expected him to be, and I'm surprised I actually beat him on the very first try. It's like I was fighting Spike all over again when I was just 6 years old, and that's when I first got this game. Or Spyro 3 at least. I mean, this is not Spyro 3, this is Spyro 2, and this is the one I've been wanting to play, like, ever since I heard of it. Which, to be honest, believe it or not, I had actually first heard of it in 2009. I mean, I got Spyro the Dragon 1 when I was like 4 or 5, and then I got Year of the Dragon for Christmas when I was 6, and I had not really played an actual... Yeah, apparently I had somehow missed out on Ripto's Rage. Which is... yeah. Sometimes I still feel like I could play the actual original version of it, but I'm glad this remake gave me the chance to do what I've never been able to do up until now. Returning to Spyro, it really made my year for me. And even though 2019 holds a lot of good stuff in store, I'm really glad that Spyro's back, in a way. Oh, and normally when I play games, I just... yeah. This is probably the very... yeah, I don't think I've felt these kinds of emotions in a very long time. Yeah, it took me a while to figure out what to say. My wits end it's getting pretty late, and yeah, there's been a lot to do for this video. But to be honest, this is definitely and always will be forever my favorite video game series. And I'm glad I got a chance to relive it. So, yeah, that's... yeah, I'm glad I got to... again, I'm glad I got to do what I was never able to in the past. Took about 9 to 10 years, but I've just about beaten all 3 games, especially 100% complete, to their fullest. And I'm glad I could get the chance to do that. We're just about done here, guys. I've got like one more thing left in my 2018 end of the year recap. But this was just like my very last actual series that I did this year. I mean, there were other series that I did this year, like when I returned to play specific DLC or updates in some of my games like Monster Hunter or Spider-Man. But yeah, I was just basically throughout this video I've just been doing one specific thing from it, no matter what it is, and when I started it, to the best of my knowledge. So yeah, that's all I have for Spyro.
Hey!
I don't think we could ever thank you enough, Spyro.
now we've arrived at the very conclusion of my 2018 end of the year recap. It's not the very last series I did, but it's one of them, and I figured it'd be best to show it last, not only because it's the last very new thing here, but it also gives you a little taste of what's to come next year. So yeah, after the Game Awards, an actual demo for Xbox One, well, on Xbox One for Devil May Cry 5 released on the 7th, and I figured it'd be best to give myself a little taste of that action, just get myself used to what to expect in March when it comes out. And it's nothing really new, to be honest. I mean, I already did a reaction video to this segment right here that's being shown. Excuse me. But it gave me the chance to experience the game for myself. It's a little something special to look forward to. And yeah. Devil May Cry 5 is definitely, for sure, one of many games that's going to just... Darn it, what am I trying to say? It is definitely a game to look forward to. The action, the story so far, well, I mean, we haven't seen much of the story, but I can tell it's going to be good nonetheless. Probably one of my top games of all time. There's really a lot to look forward to next year, and I think it's actually going to happen all in the early months of next year, and this is just a slice of that cake. And in this demo, I did my best to make sure I could try and hone my skills as a Devil May Cry player, and I, just make sure I could just string together stylish combos and just make sure that just make sure my skills were in place for when this game released. And I've had a lot of practice so far. I've played this demo like maybe over 20 times by now. I'm hoping to play it just a little bit more before it goes away. I'm really glad I played it as much as I did, because it gives me a lot of practice for what's to come, and since this is just a segment of the main game, it'll make what's happening here a heck of a lot easier since I've experienced it before. So, yeah, I'll let the rest of this play on, and I will wrap things up when it's over.
garbage now? That's some weird taste. Oh, you...
Well, guys, that's just about everything I did this year in 2018. There were some things I couldn't necessarily show. It's not because they were inappropriate or anything. It's just because, well, they weren't. I couldn't figure out how to actually put them in, given how they're set up. So, yeah. I hope you guys all had a great year this year, and I can't wait for next, to be honest. Sorry if I'm not as energetic as you would probably want me to be right now. I'm just really tired. So, yeah, I think it's been a pretty good year, to be honest. If you just overlook all the minor bad bits of it. And there were some things I wish I could have done this year, but wasn't able to. But I'm hoping to next year, to be honest. And yeah, there's still some things I need to finish up. And yeah, that's just about it, guys. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you have, this was a pretty long video. Like, I wasn't really expecting it to be this long. I was hoping it'd be at least a little bit shorter, like way shorter, to be honest. But I wanted to make sure I was as inclusive as possible. So yeah, if you were able to sit with me through all these long hours, then thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed, and Happy New Year! I will see y'all in 2019. Peace.
Whenever